right, welcome everybody back to another episode of the Big Doug and Carmi Show, your one-stop shop for all things Commanders. It's a Inside the Command Center meets a mock draft mania Friday as we invite Logan Paulsen to the show. Logan, how are you, bud?
I'm excellent, man. Good to see you guys.
Absolutely. Season's over. It was incredible. We're as quickly as one ends, we're on to the next one. Logan, how have you found free agency so far?
I've really enjoyed free agency, partially because I think Adam Peters has done such an excellent job. I think they've really just kind of hit the nail exactly on the head. Like I was really anxious, kind of doing my draft prep and looking at the free agency landscape, like how you going to find a left tackle, and then he goes out and gets Laramie Tunsil, who, is a top 7, top 6 player at the position, kind of in the same ballpark, same tier, maybe as Trent Williams in terms of athletic upside, understanding pass protection, like just an excellent football player. Then to find, explosive playmakers in the offense, like that was one thing that I was like, how do you do that? How do you find a left tackle and get more explosive offensively? And you go out and you sign Deebo Samuel in a trade, and then I look at the defensive floor and I'm like, man, they just found a bunch of guys that are really good, solid football players for really good value. And I think that's exactly what you need to do with that group. So I come out of free agency being really excited because I think it allows you going into the draft to kind of say, hey, who's the best person on our board at all of our picks? Like we don't need to pick anybody. And obviously there's certain things that you want to kind of prioritize, but definitely come out of free agency really, really impressed, really excited. And again, I think this shows you again why it's important to have a head coach and have a GM, because it is a full-time job finding talent and building a team.
That Tunsil news came out of nowhere. It feels like these things get leaked and talked about, and the fact that nobody really had heard much about it, I think is impressive. The other impressive thing, Logan, is they did all that work and they still get to keep their first round pick this year and next year. Big deal.
Yeah, I think when you look at the landscape of that trade, I think that's a great point. It's like you still understand. It shows like, hey, there's an urgency and a kind of urgency is the word I'm going to use to make sure we're ready to go for 2025. But we also understand that we still have got to make sure we're infusing the roster with young, talented pieces to surround Jaden Daniels with. So, as much as expensive as it was to get Laramie here, I think it also was relevant to say, hey, we need to make sure we maintain our 5 picks in this year's draft, right? And then, next year, I think there's some coaches are going to leave. I think some players are going to leave. I think you're going to get some comp picks. You're going to recoup some of that draft capital. I think also this year, keeping that first round draft pick allows you to potentially trade back. So I think it just shows a great awareness by the staff to kind of say, hey, we know we need to be having our foot on the gas, but we also need to be planning for the future. So to be of both minds and to kind of execute them both methodologies or both perspectives at a high level, I thought was really impressive.
Logan, obviously the team has improved over the offseason. I'm kind of curious, what do you think our potential deficit is at this point, right? Do you look at the running back room? Do you look at the wide receiver room? Or do you look at, BPA at 29? What are your thoughts in regard to that?
Yeah, in terms of draft, I'm definitely thinking BPA at 29. I think what you've done, I think what they've done a really good job of is you don't need anything now. Like I say that and people's like, oh, the team's not perfect, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And I think we all can acknowledge that. And so when you say running back, yes, if there's a talented piece there, I don't think 29, obviously there's some really talented running backs in this draft class, but I would say to me, running back value is kind of post 3rd round, so in the 3rd round or after. And because this running back class is so deep, do I expect them to draft a running back? Yeah, absolutely. I just don't expect them to, I don't want to say waste, but, use a very valuable first round draft asset on something like that. Yeah, where we can get a edge rusher or a corner, one of those positions that are quote unquote more valuable, and not even quote unquote more valuable. Like just look at contract values right now. Like those are more valuable positions. So let's see if we can get that position locked in for a 5-year contract as opposed to a running back. I think that's the way I would think about it. But yes, obviously edge rusher, cornerback, I think wide receiver, if there's some depth pieces available, no doubt. I wouldn't be opposed to draft another offensive lineman at some point.
I was thinking about that too.
Yeah, there's lots of things here that are still in play. And I think that's the great thing about the free agency process, as we've seen so far, is they've just basically said, here's the floor. It's good so far. And now you just accent that. And my buddy Fred Smoot, who I do the Command Center podcast with, was like, it's like making a sandwich. You got the meat and the bread. Now you got to put the tomato and the lettuce and the mayo in there, right, to kind of make it taste good. And this is where you accent the roster with talent is in the draft. And that's why I think BPA at 29 and really at all the picks is going to be kind of the philosophy.
And looking to follow up with that, I find the Michael Gallup addition pretty intriguing. I think it's a low risk, medium reward kind of proposition there. How aggressive should the Commanders be in regard to looking at a wide receiver? Because, I think we all agree that Shane Davis is a force multiplier. He can elevate wide receivers and people around him. Do you think a first round wide receiver is on the table there? Or do you think, they suffice right now with what they have?
Yeah, I mean, I think that goes back to best player available and how you so like obviously like for people at home who are listening, like you do your big board, your players 1 to 100, then you do like a horizontal board, which is like tiers, like tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, and I think last year was a really good example of that tier system applying. Jason Newton's available there, 35 or 36, and they take him and they said he was the highest tiered player on our board at the time, and so you just take that guy. So if there's a receiver that you're absolutely in love with, that you have a tier 2 grade on, and he's sitting there in like in a landscape of tier 5 players at 29, take a receiver. You know what I mean? Like that's what best player available means, right? And it coincides with a slight area of need. And so, do I think it's essential that they do that? No, but I do think like I want good football players. I want talented pieces on this roster. So if you get like an Alec Alumanor, like maybe as in the second round or whoever, you know what I'm saying? Like Luther Burton, like Emeka Mbuka, like whoever you want there at 29, and you have a high grade on them and you trust your scouts, like why not? I personally think they probably go in a different direction, but I do think at some point they'll add a talented young receiver in this class. You got 5 picks. Just depends on how best player available falls when that pick's on the board.
George, let's go ahead and fire up my draft machine and see what it looks like in real time. Logan, you were out while he's doing that. You were out at the combine. What were kind of some of the things of note? As much as we're out there to look at the players, it's also about meeting with other GMs and people that are close to teams. What kind of things were you hearing out there?
I mean, going to the combine is always a little bit of a show, right? Because everyone comes out of the combine saying like these are the narratives, and I understand those are the narratives. But when I talk to my coaching buddies, they haven't even started watching film yet. Like so you're talking to maybe a regional scout. Even the GMs are kind of reviewing players at that point, and so you're kind of saying to yourself like, how these rumors about guys, like how concrete are they? Are they from a legitimate source, or are they just from somebody talking to a regional scout who is getting somebody coffee on draft night? Like those are the things, those are the questions I always have coming into these things. And again, it's silly season. I go back to my evaluations, watching the film. Obviously, like with some of the players, nobody specifically, but there's a lot of rumors about character concerns. Those are things I definitely flag in the evaluation. But some teams are okay with them. Like I think about Devondre Sweat from last year, right? Like everyone came out, he had a DUI, he's going to go undrafted. He goes in the second round and had a great rookie year. So if you're okay with some of those character concerns, and that's where the scouting is different than talent evaluation. I just think you got to be really aware. It's a lot of silly rumors at this point of the year for sure. So
absolutely. And looking to follow up with that, I think James Pierce and Mike Green from Marshall are also high upside. I think they have amazing first steps as an edge. I know you can't speak for Adam Peters, but do you think the potential character concerns would be a detriment to them being selected? Because we keep on hearing the commander tag and play like a commander and that honor and that integrity that goes along with it. Or do you think our team can insulate that now with the leadership that we have?
So who knows? And this is, again, like this goes back to the scouting and the research. I've had conversations with some people here in the building about the process that goes into investigating these guys. They're calling high school coaches, they're calling Pop Warner coaches, they're talking to administrators, they're talking to janitors. Like they do comprehensive draft evaluations and investigations on these players. And so I'm going to defer to them if they do end up taking one of these guys. I will tell you, watching Mike Green on film, he plays like a commander, man. He plays reckless, he plays fast, he plays physical, he's relentless. Like, so from a film standpoint, it speaks for itself in terms of, does he play like a commander? I would say yes. Now, I think you bring up a great question about the person, but again, like I haven't talked to him. I haven't talked to anybody in this circle. I haven't talked to anybody in this camp. So that's the difference between talent evaluation, which is what we're doing kind of right now, and scouting. And that's where the scouts really, a good scouting department can save you, right? You can say, hey, this guy's worth taking an investment on because we trust that our building can insulate from whatever character issues there might be. So I think that's a really good example of what we're talking about, is that you got to do your homework on some of these guys, because the film, I think for Mike Green specifically, is fantastic.
They don't have as many draft picks as I know they'd like, Logan. And I know early in the show here, you talked, a lot of people are talking about, let's trade back, get more picks. I'm curious how you kind of draw the line as a team, excuse me, as a team builder, when you're thinking we need to have more guys on the roster that aren't on 1-year deals. It'd be nice to have some more draft picks, but also the goal is to get as many blue chippers as you can. Now, the chance of getting a blue chipper at 29, I know greatly decreases as you go down, but same thing happens when you get in the third and fourth rounds. I know that's where they say the strength is, but I'm curious from your perspective, like how do you weigh trading back for more picks and getting the best talent you can to put on the roster?
Yeah, I think that goes back again to that tier system and trusting your tiers, right? So, like for example, like at 29, let's say we've just started a new tier. Like all of the players we had in tiers 1, 2, and 3 and 4 are gone at this point, right? And so we're in 29, and we have, I don't know, 15, 11 players in tier in that fifth tier, for example, right? So I can trade down 11 spots and still get a fifth tier player. And so that's kind of where I would say, like, if that's how my board is drawn up, is that if that's how it's set up, and there's 11 players that I like approximately the same, right? Because that's essentially what I'm saying by that tier setup. Then I can trade down 11 spots and
Hmm.
still get a player that I'm happy with. And so that's kind of the way I look at it. And so, like, you see teams trade down 5 spots, 4 spots. I really think they're abiding by that tier principle. They say we've got 4 guys in here. We'll end up getting one if we trade down a little bit. So for me, and also I think it depends on the allocation of picks, quite frankly. Like if we're getting, let's say we trade down 10 spots and we get a third round pick this year and we recoup a second for next year. Like I'm doing that, right? Like I just did a mock draft with Craig on the Take Command podcast.
Hmm.
And one of the things that there was a trade from, it was from the the LA Chargers trading up to 29, right? Because they wanted Colston Loveland and they gave 4 picks for that. And so you were talking about how maintaining draft capital is extremely important. And at some point, like I have to ask myself, is one player worth 4 players? And also accounting for how Adam Peters uses draft capital to acquire blue chippers in trades. Like that's
Hmm.
the other thing. This is currency, right? So again, like if someone's willing to give you a lot of currency for one player, I'm definitely going to kick the tires on it, especially if I feel very comfortable about the tier that I'm in with regards to the range of player that I can select.
Logan, one last question before we jump on into this. I think this it was a good thought experiment this offseason with Adam Peters trading for Debo Samuel and Laremy Tunzel, but also giving up some draft capital. Do you have one particular way that you want to build a team or just get the best player available? Because I do feel like there's a healthy balance between the two. We only have 5 selections left, but we also added Lattimore, Samuel, and Tunzel to our team.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing that I talk to Fred about this all the time. Despite all the noise he makes, he's a smart dude. Fred and Santana both. Is that like for Laramie, right? How are you going to find a left tackle, right? And so
Yeah.
people say you draft one. I'm like,
Yep.
what are the chances that you draft a franchise left tackle at 29? Josh Connerly, Josh Simmons, maybe, right? If they're there at 29, and there's no
Hmm.
guarantee that they're going to develop. Like you look at rookie offensive linemen specifically, it takes them about 3 years, 2 to 3 years to find their feet. So are you going to kind of squalor in the mud of a developmental offensive lineman for 3 years
Hmm.
while you've got this Jaden Daniels window also? Like I think you
Hmm.
need to be aggressive and go find somebody. But the problem is teams don't let free agent offensive linemen go. So how do you get that player? Got to go trade for it. And
Hmm.
getting that player of that caliber, it's going to cost money, but it costs draft capital, right? But it
Hmm.
allows you to get into a place where you can address other things more reticently. I'm not taking an
Hmm.
offensive lineman every year in the draft because we've got our guy now. We're okay. We're set.
Hmm.
We're relatively set with that group. So same thing with the receiver. It's hard to find difference makers at the receiver position at 29. It just is, right?
Hmm.
Obviously, last year Xavier Worthy might be the exception, but like Keon Coleman, a little bit of a dud year for him, right? It's like it's
Hmm.
just hard to find that player. So let's take draft capital, go after a known asset, a guy that's done at a high level, a guy that we have an offensive vision for in Debo Samuel. I think that's a good move. Is there risk associated with it? Absolutely. But is there a risk associated with picking a guy at 29? Yes. It's just
Yes.
I think you've mitigated risk with the guys you've gone out and selected.
Proven commodity. Hmm.
Yes, you know them, right? And so
Hmm.
again, that's where I come down on the drafting. For this team, because of the lack of talent from the last regime and how many draft picks walked out the door and how few of them developed, you
Hmm.
needed to be aggressive. And I think he's walking the line about as well as you can between being aggressive and making sure you still have the ability to build through young talent in the draft.
I like it. All right, well, let's jump on into it. Logan, the way we do this is we're going to do our mock draft. We're going to go through the actual draft picks. You, as our guest, has the final decision on who we pick. We'll post up to Twitter to see how people react to our draft board. I guess what we'll do before I fire it up, is there any particular player that you're interested in or hoping falls at 29 before we get it going?
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking for some type of edge rusher. Obviously, there's some pretty talented guys in this class. It's a pretty deep class. In the mock drafts that I've done with Craig on Take Command, I've been surprised at how early a lot of them have gone. So it gets a little bit thin here. But I'm looking edge. I'm looking corner. Siobhan Ravel, for whatever reason, if the injury pushes him down here, I'm probably doing a backflip. But talented edge, talented corner, and then go from there.
All right, let's run it. Let's see what happens.
I'm with you, Logan. If Revel was not hurt, it feels like he was a top 10 player.
That's definitely what it's starting to feel like. The more and more I've watched him and the more people talk about him, I think everyone's very, very excited about him and his ability for sure.
So look at the board. Luther Burden off the board. Malachi Starks-Soalik's off the board. Colson Loveson off the board as well. Marion Hampton goes at 28 to who's this? A Lion. I don't know why they would do that, but let me go over to the Lions as well. We're looking over here. A prospect that I'm really intrigued in, James Pierce, but the floor is yours, Logan. Take a look at the board. Tell us who you like, who you're interested in. What are you thinking about?
Yeah, I mean, obviously James Pierce Jr. is getting a lot of headlines. He ran the 4.47 at the combine. His film is good, not great. There's all this stuff about the character that's coming out about him now, which I'm not informed enough to comment on decisively one way or another. But his upside, his ceiling is very high, and I think he's kind of, I won't say exactly what you're looking for, but something very, very close to exactly what you're looking for in terms of pass rush upside, pass rush juice. Gray Zabel is an outstanding offensive lineman. He played left tackle at North Dakota State, and then is probably going to play guard. Had a really solid Senior Bowl, tested well at the combine. He's 6'6", he's like 315. He's like your perfect guard. So if you wanted to go guard here, I think you'd be okay. Derek Hampton, I think, is a special football player, interior defensive tackle from Oregon. He played 4-eye, played nose, played a little bit 3 technique. He's a freak, man. He's got 34-inch arms. He's 315. He can bend. He's got some pass rush juice. So Nick Scorton, I feel the same way about him. So if there's one person of this group I just talked about, it's Nick Scorton in terms of who plays like a commander. Like when you watch him on film, he plays with the requisite amount of physical violence. And I think that's awesome. He gives you some flexibility. He plays hard all the time. So I look at that and I'm like, I get really excited. Darius Alexander, the guy right after him, I feel the same way about. A little bit technically raw, older prospect would get you a little bit nervous, but man, Josh Connerly's here, Alec Alumanor. So we were talking about trading back, right?
Yeah, I was going to say that's potential. But go ahead.
At this point, for example, I would feel, because of how deep this is, I would feel comfortable trading out of the first round potentially, unless for all those people at home that I can hear balking at this, unless I had unless James Pierce Jr., because of his athletic profile, is in a different tier. All those guys I just mentioned kind of fall in the same tier for me in terms of the impact on the roster.
All right, so look at potential for you. You're the guest on our show. The Las Vegas Raiders have been calling. They're offering pick 37 and some other change around there as well. And we're looking at the Indianapolis Colts offering 45. Do you pick up that phone call or do you just draft whoever's on the board?
I'd probably look at moving back to 37 with some excitement there, because I think you also gain what is that, 68? Is that the pick they're giving? 37?
We can play around and see what happens.
I see what you're saying. I see what's happening there. Yeah. I mean, even if you got 108 from them, I think you'd be ecstatic, because it gives you the opportunity to trade back into the third round if you wanted to. So if they're down for that, I'll do that.
So 37 and 108, we can get that for sure. Unless you want to play around and try to get 68. Are you just happy with what we have?
I'm happy with what we have. I'm a content man.
You're a content man. All right, perfect. All right, let's hit it. All right, we're going to move back 8 spots. Let's see what happens.
Logan, how important is getting an outside corner so they can get Sandra Stroll back inside? I know they brought back a monogamy, but I'm sure it seems like there's 2 schools of thought, right? We're super stoked that we just lucked into a boundary corner because they're hard to find. Or we think we have the best nickel in the game, and the nickel is increasingly becoming more and more close to the most important position on the field the way they're deployed now. Where is your school of thought there?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think Max Sanderson did a great job on the perimeter, and I think that's one of the things that makes you feel pretty good about the flexibility they brought in with Jonathan Jones. You know, like if Jonathan Jones can play the outside, then you can bump Sanders still into the slot, maybe in certain packages, right? Or maybe in dime, you know, Noah Igbenogany does this and Sanders still does this, and you just kind of play with that kind of relationship there. So I think you want to find more talent on the perimeter. I think it's going to be harder in this draft than people anticipate, but I do think
Mm,
there are some really talented people here that could make your football team a lot better.
mm. All right, going back to the board, Logan, Derek Harmon came off at 29. Gray Zabel came off. James Pierce to the Eagles. I hate to see that. Maxwell Harrison to the
That's the
Browns.
Eagles pick there, right?
Yeah, that's the Eagle pick.
Yeah.
It's going to fall in your lap, man. Then Nick Sorton to Titans at 35. So we're at 37. We gained an extra 4th-round pick, and we have this talent on the board. You talk us through it. Logan. What are
Yeah.
you thinking?
I mean, shoot, Savon Ravel is still here. And again, he's at 43 on this board. I don't think he's going to last that long, but in terms
Mhm.
of size, length, aggressiveness, like he's willing to tackle, he's physical, he's got that dog mentality. Like we did a
Mhm.
corner ranking, Fred and I recently, and we said like if he had not been hurt, he would have been a top 3 player for us as a perimeter DB. So that's really exciting. We talked about Alec Ayumaynor. Jack Beck is a great receiver here. The other one that I saw in here was Landon Jackson from
I
Arkansas.
saw that too. Mhm.
And if you've listened to anything I've done draft wise, like I love this player. I think we talked about Nick Scorton playing in a certain way. Landon Jackson plays that way. He
Mm.
plays so hard and so violently. Like he lacks like kind of top end bend, I think, but he's got the length, he's got the explosive measurements. I don't think he's ever going to be a 10 sack a year kind of guy, but he's just a maven, man. And like when I think about Commanders and mentality and mindset and needing an edge presence, like he fits that bill for me. But then you look down at Princely Unyamanyelen from Ole Miss, and I think like he's got a little bit more pass rush upside, which is exciting to me. And so depending on what you're looking for, if you're Dan Quinn, like there's 3 players right here: Landon
Yeah, great
Jackson,
players.
Savon Ravel, Prince Umanniello, that I'd say you'd be fine taking any one of those at this spot, and you'd be excited because on film, like the first 2 of those guys are absolute maniacs, and they are Commanders through and through. So it just depends. Like if Big Doug's my defensive coordinator, he comes in and says, "I really want a perimeter corner," I'm probably taking Javon Ravel. Or if he says, "Hey man, we need a guy like a dog on the defensive line," I'm probably taking Landon Jackson. Is the way I look at it here.
All right, so Logan, before I pull the trigger, my question to you is, do you think it's essential that we get a straight pure speed rusher? Because I do think James Pierce offers that high upside, that fast twitch, but he's a little bit slim. He might not hold up in the run, and I know that was the area of concern last year. But we have those big guys now. Like, do we need a well-rounded defensive end or edge in your opinion, or can you get like Landon Jackson seems well-rounded to me? Maybe not the 10 sack, 15 sack guy like James Pierce would be. I'm curious what's more appealing to the Commanders this year.
So I think for me right now, you are looking for that 10 sack a year guy. And I think the
Okay.
thing that kind of scared me off of Pierce at 29, quite
Mhm.
honestly, was is what kind of player are you? He only plays about 20 snaps a game, 25 snaps a game.
Mm.
The rumor is that he's doing that because football's not that important to him. So you say, "Oh, like is he a Commander?" And again, I don't want to be negative on a guy that I've never talked to, but that's the rumor
Objective, yeah.
circulating at
Yeah,
the
that's
moment.
fine. Yeah,
And
yeah.
so I look at Landon Jackson, and to me, there's not a question in my mind watching the film like who he is. I look at Siobhan Ravel, there's not a question in my mind watching the film who he is. And so those feel like less risky picks based on what
Mhm.
they're putting out each and every week. And obviously there's an injury with Siobhan Ravel. I personally think you probably feel comfortable taking him at 29, right?
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
I think that'd be totally fine. But so it's so to me, yes, I think you want a guy with more pass rush upside, more pass rush juice. I think that's kind of what they're lacking. When you look at the front at the moment, they got Wise, they got
Farrell,
Farrell. They re-signed
more
what's his name?
Armstrong.
Yes, like they've got all these pieces that are really
Mhm.
good, solid football players.
Mhm.
You need that panache, you need that go-to flavor, I think.
I think it said
And
spice
Juice.
the other day. Yeah, I heard you say
yeah,
that. Yeah. Mhm.
yeah. So I think that's what I look at. But again, like I'd probably
It's
take
on you.
Ravel here because I think he's an excellent football player. But shoot, man, it hurts my heart because I love Landon Jackson.
Let's do it. All right, Landing at 61. All right, so we started off with a pretty large boundary corner over there. We're sitting at 61, our second round pick. Potentially, Cam Scatterbo, Shamar Turner, Darian Porter is a 6'4" corner. Have you done any research on him, Logan?
Yeah.
He's a curious prospect in my opinion. I think he's really interesting.
Yeah, I watched him for our DB breakdown I did with Fred, and I had him as
Okay.
my 10th DB.
Okay.
Not because of the film. I'll tell you that right now.
Okay.
It's because he is one of the freakiest human beings at the combine in this draft. He's
Limited
6'2",
experience.
almost 6'3". He's
Mhm.
210 pounds. He ran a 4.28 at the combine. He had a plus 40-inch vertical, right? His broad jump was almost 11 feet, which is wild. He had the
Mhm.
fastest three cone of any player at the combine. And when you watch him on film, you see that movement skill. But he's also only played DB for one season. He's also 26 years old, right? So
Yeah.
it's just like you see the want to, you see the passion, you see the motivation from him. And so again, like that's why he's 10th on my list, because I'm banking on him kind of getting with an NFL coach and figuring it out. But he is far from a complete prospect. And so I know a lot of people that at least on the comments for our shows have been clamoring for Darren Porter. Oh, he's a Dan Quinn type corner. Dan Quinn doesn't play that much cover 3 anymore, right? They play more man, right? So I look for man type players, and I say those are pieces that that are in this draft built a little bit differently than him, for example. Everybody's favorite running back at the moment. If you scroll down a little bit, I love Jared Ivey, but we just drafted an edge rusher. One of maybe my favorite.
Actually, we did. We got Rebel, by the way. I sorry to interrupt you.
Oh, sorry. That's right. I was so caught up there. I do love Jared Ivey. He's I don't know if he fits exactly what they want playing the position, right? He's 6'6", he's 285. There's some inside outside flexibility. When I watch his tape, man, I get so impressed with how casually he beats offensive linemen in college. It's like he's this big guy that does have pass rush nuance, which is so surprising for a man of his size, right? So that's one that's really interesting to me because of the inside outside flexibility. Maybe my favorite interior player in the class, right? Just my personal favorite is Omar Norman Lott, man.
Yeah.
He is an absolute maniac. Like I love watching him play. Like he is disruptive. And I hate doing this, but he's got that same kind of disruption and hand usage that's like a poor man's, I'm not even gonna say it, but like
I know where you're going with it. Yeah, I know where you're going with it.
He reminds me of that a little bit, right? He's got the length, the hand usage, the disruption. So I love him as a player, right? Kyle Kennard's another guy, long, rangy, twitched up edge rusher. So kind of in answer to your question earlier, maybe an edge that fits more that vision, that pass rush upside vision. Shia Stewart, kind of same thing, a little bit shorter, a little bit twitched up. So I think there's some good edge rushers here if you wanted to go that direction. Can we look at linebacker? We can pick. I'm okay here.
Take a look. I don't know if we can. It would look real fast.
There's nobody here that I would be super juiced about. But yeah, so
you're looking for Campbell. Is that what you're looking for, Jahad Campbell?
He's for sure gone. He was probably gone in the first round, right?
Yeah.
I just wanted to see if there's anybody that kind of fit the bill there. So I don't know. I personally like Jared Ivey. I love Omar Norman Lott. It feels a little redundant to take a defensive tackle 2 years in a row, but I love him. I think he's a great football player. If I wanted to go pass rusher here, I'd probably go Kyle Kennard from South Carolina. I think he's got a lot of work to do, but I think you see the flashes, and I think he can be that guy that's kind of the pass rush specialist. And I think he kind of fits with what the team needs, kind of that complementary fastball pitcher to these big, solid defensive players across the front.
That's your guy?
That's my guy.
All right. And then, Logan, while I'm doing this, my question, I don't know if you've got into running backs at all. I love Dylan Sampson. I think he's a pretty explosive back. He's a home run threat, in my opinion. He's kind of small at 5'8", 200. Have you gotten his film by any chance, or you haven't touched that yet?
Yeah, I'm doing backs actually this weekend. So we're going to do our show, Ticket to the Draft. So I've only watched probably 2 or 3 of them. So I've got a lot of homework to do, but I'll shoot you a text when I've watched them and let you know. But I defer to you, man. It sounds like he's a pretty good football player.
Sounds good.
He's fast. As we see these interior linemen kind of come off the board and the tackle Irsay was up there earlier, Logan, I'm curious to what happens to Brandon Coleman in your mind. I know there will be a competition and then we'll see what happens. And when you ask the team, that's what they'll tell you. But do you have a lean one way or the other? What you think they'd like to see happen?
With Brandon, before the combine, I was all in on, hey man, let's go to guard, man. Let's move him to guard. I think Allegretti quite honestly did a great job last year. It was really impressive. But the thing about him that, you paid him like a swing player. So let's make him be a swing player. But I think with the Wiley restructure and like the kind of the rumors swirling coming out of the combine. This is just people who don't, or they're not affiliated with the Commanders, just people looking outside in. They were like, I'd move him to right tackle. So after that, I've kind of softened my tune. I think he could play left guard or right tackle. And again, I think he just gives you the flexibility to get your best 5 on the field. And I think ultimately that's the goal, right? Get your best 5 on the football field.
Absolutely.
Here we go. So David Walker, love him. I love Vernon. How do you say that name? Burton?
Broughton. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Again, this film's solid. Andrew Mbuka is a fun player to watch from Texas, safety from Texas. Isaiah Bond, if you're looking for some offensive juice. Jacob Parrish, man. Let's stop right there. Oh, dude, both my guys, Jacob Parrish and Oladejo from UCLA.
That's a UCLA guy right there. There you go. Perfect.
Have you watched any film on him? Either
I
of you?
haven't. Not yet.
I got just a little bit, but he's fun.
He plays a little bit like he wants to give people concussions all the time, which I really enjoy. He plays with the requisite amount of physical violence that I think is appropriate for the position. So played at stand-up linebacker at Cal, transferred to UCLA, played his first 6 games at stand-up linebacker, and then they moved him to edge. And at the Senior Bowl was probably the most impressive football player there, for a guy that's making a position switch. So I look at Frankie Louvu and I'm like, this guy is a little bit bigger version of that, like just a violent, physical, inside-outside pass rush flexibility. And you talk about adding juice to a group. And again, we talk about this Commanders tag. When you watch a dude on film and when you watch him in a leadership role at the Senior Bowl, like, holy cow, man, I get fired up about him, right? And Jacob Parrish is the same way, man. He played outside corner at Kansas. He is a dog, man. He is a dog competitor. He's 5'9", a little undersized. He reminds me so much of Mikey Sanderstill, competitive tackler, good blitzer. I think if he goes to a bigger school, he might be not on the board at this point. Wow. So again, like if you're looking for good secondary players, maybe that's the role. I'd probably go Oladejo here because I think you've got your Ravel, you've got Sanderstill, you've got a bunch of nickel pieces. And Oladejo to me is just a heck of a football player, man.
And he'll play edge in your opinion.
Oh, I think so, man. I think you get him out there with Frankie, you get him out there with Kennard, the guy who did we draft before this?
Yeah, Kennard, Revel and Kennard.
Get him out there with Kennard, and all of a sudden this defensive line's got some youth, got some energy, got some fire in conjunction with these bigger bodies up front, man. So I don't know, man. I'd probably go that direction if you're asking me.
You're fired up. I love it. So that's perfect. I don't mind doing it. We got two defensive players. You don't mind. We're getting 2 different edges. Just who cares? Just let the fire go. I love it. I'm down for it.
Yeah. I mean, like I look at this and like you talk about like when people have to pitch the draft to you afterwards, I say like Javon Ravel is an absolute dog, dog. Oladejo is an absolute dog. And I want my team to be a composite of just competitive, tough, violent football players with good athletic upside. And is Oladejo the bendiest edge rusher of all time? No, but he's got a feel for it and he's got the juice, man. And I'm in on the juice. So if you got the juice, I'm in on it and I'm buying. And I think Kyle Kennard, he's got one of the best get-offs in college football. So let's get that going, man. Let's get this group ready to rock and roll and rush the quarterback.
Yeah, because outside of Armstrong, they're all on one-year deals. Like to your point, they need part of the whole thing of draft. The reason the cupboard's been bare is because they haven't had draft picks that they can re-sign, right? So it's like you've had to do this. They're gonna have to flip 40, 50, 60% of the roster again next year because of all the one-year deals. So yeah, to me, no matter what the position, as long as we can get guys in here that and you keep saying it, Logan, and I'm with you, the team needs juice on the edges.
Yeah.
That's my takeaway from today. I think Logan said, I want the juice. Give me the juice. I'll buy the juice. I love that. So that sounds good, Logan. Perfect.
Me too.
All right. So we're sitting here at 128. So we're going all defensive for it. I have no problem with that. Revel, Kennard, Oladejo. We have all 3 of them.
Have you guys watched Willie Lampkin from North Carolina?
Not yet.
Yeah, small, right? But
dude, he's like 5'10". He's like 270. But his film is a blast to watch, man. Holy cow! So everyone talking about running back. What are we in the 4th round right now? I think it's a great opportunity to add a little offensive juice. We got this running back Basil Tootin. His mom's a sprint champion. His dad's a sprint champion. He's got excellent juice here. You know, he's again, I haven't done like a full dive on him, but in terms of the stuff I've read, the limited stuff that I have watched of him, you're looking for an explosive playmaker in the offense. Ran the fastest 40 at the combine. Oh boy, I got to stop myself from talking, right? We got Troy Horton here on the board. And I think he has true X receiver upside in the NFL. I think he's probably a true 2 at the moment. He's 6'3", he's like 190 pounds, but his 2023 tape is awesome, man. It's awesome. He had an ACL injury last year. I think he only played 3 games, if I remember correctly. But yeah, man, he's an impressive football player. And again, if you want to give a guy that runs good routes, nuanced routes, understands stems, leverages, how to break coverages, catches the football well, he's a guy that I get really fired up for. So let's go down a little bit. See what else we got here. We got
that Lampkin's 5'10", but I think he had the second longest arms of any offensive lineman that came to the combine.
Oh, did he really? Yeah.
Yeah, things are like scratches his knees while he's standing.
There was a running back on here from SMU.
I gotta scroll
up.
Up
Just a little bit. Yeah,
right
Smith, right?
Rashad Smith. Like, so at the Senior Bowl, I was like, who is this guy that's literally routing every linebacker and safety up? And so you do a little research on Rashad Smith. He's a converted wide receiver. I think he ran a 4.39 or 4.40 at the combine and runs violently. And talk about a space player that would be great in a space offense that catches the football like a wide receiver and just adding more flexibility to this Cliff Kingsbury offense. Like, yeah, man. Like, I don't know. I can't decide. We're in kind of the land of like, I love them all kind of deal.
Yeah.
I'd probably go with the fast guy here in Basil Toot and just say, hey, man, let's get this guy some space and let you run your 100-yard dash and see how many touchdowns you can score.
Is he the missing component in the running back room? Because I think Brian Robinson has a little bit of power. Eckler has a good pass blocking, and he also catch from the backfield. We just need some straight speed, in your opinion.
Yeah, I think straight. So you just talked me out of it, right? No, I did it already. Oh no, I was going to say when we were talking through it, I was like going to say Rashard Smith. It probably fits that complementary piece better.
Yeah,
but I want to see this guy run. Let's get him going a little bit.
All right, there you go.
They should have a lot of fun. Cliff ought to have a lot of fun with the offense this year. They've got a lot of interesting weapons to deploy.
Yeah, no, it is exciting. Can we look at the offensive lineman real quick?
Tackle or interior?
Tackle, please, and then we'll look at interior afterwards.
All right.
Colin Pierce to just scroll. Oh, dude. Okay, there's some interesting guys here, but they're like a little later value here. So, is that all of them?
Yeah, I guess right now. Yep.
All right, cool. Yeah, let's look at guards real quick. Thank you.
No worries.
Oh yeah, look at us, man. We got some football players on the board here. All right, let's go back to the the big board real quick.
Okay.
And scroll down a little bit. Oh, Ty Felton. He's got some juice. Maryland guy.
That's my guy.
Is that what's his name? Jalen Connors from
tight end from Texas Tech.
Texas Tech got some ability for sure. Let's scroll down a little bit more. Let's see what we got. Man, let's see. Stop right there. So the kid from Nevada, how do you say that name? Kitten
Crawford. Yeah.
Ken Crawford. Okay.
He had a 10 RAS score coming out of the combine. And I don't know where we're picking, right? But he's like, I think he's 6 foot, like 215. But he had like a 40-inch vertical. He had the longest broad jump of the safeties. He has long arms. And I have not watched any film on him, but I know based on what Adam Peters did last year, if you look at the guys that they picked up later, they were high RAS guys. And so he's sitting here, special teams value, I'm assuming. Again, I haven't watched this film yet, so I'm apologizing for just kind of throwing a name out here. But this would be interesting to me in this range, right? If we're looking for just kind of, again, some defensive explosion, that would be interesting to me for sure. So he's one on my radar right here. And then, dude, Luke, the tight end from Iowa, I think is also interesting here. He's injured, always like kind of constantly banged up, but man, like when I watched him at the Shrine Bowl, like got some ability, got some like movement skills. Iowa tight end, he blocks,
Iowa tight end, exactly right.
Yeah,
and so
factory.
And his dad was a former Redskin, right?
Is that right?
Yeah, Jim Lachey.
Yeah.
Oh wow! Look at us, just stumbling. Look at me stumbling into information here. That's always
there you go.
That's what we're here for. Let's scroll up a little bit. Clark. Yeah, go to the top of the list here. I do like this defensive tackle. I do like him a lot. He's big. He's got long arms. I don't know if you need him, but like if he's the best player on your board here, like Vernon Burton, So yeah, I think you measured at the combine at 6'5", 315. He had 35-inch arms, and you watch him kind of set the run a little off balance, but is like a big frame guy. What round are we in right now? 5th round, 6th round?
We're on pick. What are we on? 205. So what is that, 6th round?
Pick. Yeah.
Yeah, 6th round, pick 29.
You know what? I might go. We went running back last pick, right?
Mhm.
And I might go Ty Felton here.
Let's
I
do
know
it.
that's
I'm
kind of
in.
out of it's kind of the blue, right?
And
Because
also, by the way, if you can get Ty Felton in the 6th round, I'm not sure about that one, but I'm sure that you're feeling pretty good about it.
He was Maryland's, as a Maryland guy, he was Maryland's offense last year. I think they filtered like 25 or 30% of their throws to him. So he can do it all. He's a little bit slim. That's a knock on him, but I think he can catch everything. He definitely, there's some upside there. I like him there.
Yeah, tall, fat, ran really well at the combine, fast guy. I personally think he has a hard time catching the football consistently. Like when you look at his gauntlet drill and some of that stuff. But if you're looking for an upside play here to kind of replace De'Ami Brown, don't hate that at all. So why don't we go receiver here at pick, what is this? 205, man. We're in it. We're in
Let's
it.
do 205.
Do you think they had hoped to bring De'Ami back, or they knew he was going to be priced out of where they were going to feel comfortable?
I think they probably wanted to bring him back, but I think obviously you're pricing out of something, and it's like, you got to make sure you're making the right investments for the team. So that's where I'd say, yeah, I understand. I understand letting him hit the market, hoping the market's not there for them, and getting him to come back and getting him at a good value for the team.
I'm not going to ask you to be a doctor here, Logan, but what do you think is reasonable for the timeline on Cosme?
Oh, I have no idea. That's like outside of my area of expertise.
Okay.
Like I know usually so I do ACL rehabs for my other job, which is like Gen Pop, physical therapy, physical trainer type stuff. Usually like 6 months is like return to run, right? So sprinting, cutting, all that kind of stuff. And usually it takes another 2 months to kind of get them back to like football like shape. But so what is that, 8 months about? So like I don't know when he got hurt, but that's just
Like
again, that's
mid-January.
I have no insight on Cosme's ACL. I'm just saying generally that's kind of been my experience doing it. So,
Okay.
Obviously NFL players are superheroes, so they can do whatever they need to do.
Is it an easier recovery for a guy that plays in a phone booth, if you will, compared to a receiver, or no, that won't really have much effect?
I think they're both equally challenging. Like with a receiver, you're negotiating like higher ground contact forces because like you're decelerating, you're accelerating. There's a lot of force going through the knee, and getting back that high contractile velocity at those flex knee positions can be somewhat challenging. But then with offensive linemen, the other thing you're negotiating is like you're pushing on people, right?
Well, yes.
So how strong are you? How strong do you feel? How strong do you feel when there's traffic around your foot? So they're different, right? And they present different issues in the rehab because of the sport specific demands of what they're asked to do on the football field.
Okay.
Can we scroll down a little bit? Thank you. And here we go. What we got? All right.
We had your guy on the top. I don't know if you want. I know typically
again,
7th round.
The reason I haven't picked him is because I'm a little bit curious, uncertain whether he fits exactly what they want to do defensively here. You know what I'm saying? Whether
absolutely.
That's where I'm a little bit like I like him as a player, but do I like him?
Not because I'm just an insufferable Georgia homer, which I am, but that smile Munden's going to make some people happy. The things he does at his size, he's the linebacker it feels like people are looking for these days.
What number is he, Doug? What number was he? Do you remember?
Oh, God. I should know.
Sorry to put you on the spot.
No.
Sorry to put you on the spot because now it's all starting to bleed together. But if you're looking for special teams value, like linebacker here at this spot's great. I like the defensive tackle in terms of value. Jordan Hancock, is he the starting safety from Ohio State? What number? We don't know his number.
He was number 2. Logan.
He had several hundred snaps. He definitely was playing.
Was number 2.
I would probably I think this is the guy that I've watched again. It's all starting to blur together. We're getting in the late rounds here of the draft, but if it's the player that I'm thinking of, I think it is. I don't know if it is or not.
He had 730 snaps. Yeah, so he definitely played a lot.
They have a safety at Ohio State who is a very physical, competitive down here football player. And if this is this gentleman, I would probably take him here, I think. And I don't know if it is or not, but that's what I would be thinking.
The benefit of the doubt. I mean, it's a 7th round pick. I mean, you want to pull the trigger on it? Whatever you want. Up to you.
I mean, yeah, why not? Let's do it. You know what I mean?
do
Let's get him in our building. You feel good about him. You know what I mean? Let's get him in the building.
Some juice on this team. Let's do it, man. I'm ready. I like this draft. It's awesome, actually. It's kind of funny. People are going to look at this draft and be like, oh, you guys are homers with the Maryland pick and the Virginia Tech pick, but we had no intention of that at all. We definitely took the best player available and we kind of put it together. So I don't know.
I mean, again, I don't know if Siobhan Ravel is going to be there at 43. I don't know if Kyle Kennard is going to be there at 68. But I think they're all good football players, and I feel really good about this draft. And the other thing too is I don't know if they've updated their board since the combine, but this gets me fired up. If this was the stock that they came home with after the draft, you get an upside receiver in the 6th round, you get a fast, explosive running back. Again, when you look around the NFL, you look at these teams that are kind of making that playoff push. They have that explosive weapon in the backfield. And I think you get some really solid defensive pieces with your first 3 picks. Guys are going to make you better right now. And really are culture guys here also. So, man, this is awesome.
I love it.
Well, Logan, I'm glad we were able to get you back in our building. It's been a little while. This was fantastic, buddy. We always learn something when we talk with you. And I appreciate you giving us some time today.
A lot of
Thanks
fun.
for having me on, man. Yeah, it's great seeing you guys.
All right, buddy. We'll do it again.
All right. See you.
I see you later. See you guys.